You spat into a tube and mailed a company your DNA. Then hackers walked in through the front door and browsed the genetic data of nearly 10 million people. The company took 5 months to admit it, and only after your data was already for sale online. This is the breach that should scare you more than any password leak. The company is 23andMe. For years it sold a simple, seductive promise: send us your spit, and we'll tell you who you really are. Your ancestry. Your ethnicity. Your risk for certain diseases written into your genes. Millions of people did it. They handed over the single most permanent piece of identification they will ever own. Here's the part that matters. You can change a stolen password in 30 seconds. You cannot change your DNA. It is the one credential you are stuck with for life, and your children inherit half of it whether they consent it or not. So how did the attackers get in? Not with some genius zero-day exploit. They used a technique so basic it has a boring name: credential stuffing. They took usernames and passwords already leaked from other websites, and they simply tried them on 23andMe. People reuse passwords. Enough of those old logins still worked. And here is where the UK's data regulator, the ICO, says the company failed. The ICO found there was no mandatory multi-factor authentication, no second step, no code on your phone, nothing standing between a recycled password and your genetic profile. For a company sitting on the most sensitive data a human being can hand over, that is not a small oversight. That is leaving the vault unlocked and hoping nobody tries the handle. But it gets worse, because of how 23andMe was built. Once attackers were inside even a fraction of accounts, a feature meant for finding relatives, DNA relatives, let them pivot outward, scraping data on people who were never even breached themselves. The ICO found the company had weak controls over that raw genetic data. So a few compromised logins turned into the exposure of names, dates of birth, ethnicity, and genetic health information for close to 10 million people. Now the part that turns a breach into a betrayal. The attacks ran across 2023. The stolen data started showing up for sale on hacking forums. And the ICO found that a roughly 5-month gap passed before the company properly acted. It moved seriously only after its customers' most intimate data was already being advertised to buyers online. 5 months. On genetic records. That silence is the story. For all of this, the ICO issued a penalty of £2.31 million. And you should sit with how small that number is. 10 million people's DNA, exposed and sold, priced at a couple of £1 million. Regulators call these findings, the company can contest them. But whatever the label, the math is brutal, the fine is a rounding error next to the value of the data that leaked. And this isn't one rogue company. Look at what the same regulator has been doing. It hit Reddit with a far larger fine for failing to protect the data of children under 13. Different platform, identical disease, our most sensitive information, our genes, our kids, treated as a low-priority checkbox until a regulator forces the issue. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody in this industry wants said out loud. When you use most apps, the product being sold is your attention. When you use a DNA company, the product being stored is your body's source code. That is a fundamentally different level of trust, and it was met with recycled password security and a 5-month silence. So what do you actually do with this? Be honest about what a novelty test costs you. That ancestry breakdown is fun for an afternoon. The data outlives the fun by the rest of your life, and the lives of everyone genetically tied to you. Before you spit in the tube, ask a colder question then: where am I from? Ask, who is guarding this, what happens when they fail, and will they even tell me in time? Because in this case, the answer was, not well, badly, and no. This is commentary and opinion, for educational purposes. This is unfiltered reality. Subscribe for the stories hidden in plain sight.